Welcome back to Real Terms for AI, where we cover a lot of topics in AI, like generative AI and agents, and then we tie it all back to software engineering so us software engineers can actually understand how this all works. Today, Jason, I have a proposal.
We can talk more about software engineering?
Kinda. I actually wanted to talk about data science today, since that's one of your areas of expertise, and I specifically wanted to talk about how we can use generative AI to make data science better.
That actually sounds really fun. And it's also not something we've really talked about yet on the show. So where should we start?
So I thought it'd be good for us to map out a common pattern of doing data science model building and talk about all the places that we can use LLMs and agents to help us build the best model. For this, let's go back to our pet shop and let's pretend that we want to build a new model for our pet shop that allows people to take a photo of, say, a cat toy they see at a friend's house and then put that into our system and we'll find that cat toy for them so they can buy it for their cat. Basically, it's a common image recognition and pattern matching problem.
I love it. So we're going to diagram this approach out and maybe how we'd solve this if we were a data scientist at the pet shop.
And because watching you draw is really boring, we're going to speed this part up, right?
We are going to speed it up. And just before, we're going to use a methodology called CRISP, which is the cross-industry standard process for data mining. And you can Google it on the internet. It is not an AI made-up thing. So let's go ahead and get this drawn out. Behold our data science process.
Okay. Explain.
All right, let's start working from our understanding all the way through the deployment.
Okay.
First thing that we want to do is think about the business problem that we're actually trying to solve with an AI or an ML model. Are we looking for better revenue, better customer service, or are we even thinking about different ways that our customers will interact with us and what the implications of that are? We also need to make sure that we have data that can actually be used to solve this use case, because it may be a great idea and we may not have any data that we could actually use for it.
Okay. So once we're good on that, I get this step. This is where we're actually building our model. And so first we're going to need to do some sort of data prep, transformations to the data that we just talked about. And then from there, we're going to use that data to build our model. And then we're going to evaluate the model. We've talked a lot about various methods of evaluation in this series. And then we're going to feed the results of those evaluations back to the prep step so we can improve our model. And then once we have good metrics and we'd like to launch our model, we're going to need to deploy it. And this could be a whole other part of software engineering, but for today, let's just assume that we can ship our model to an endpoint to keep that part simple. That work?
Yep.
So Jason, for our pet food classifier, how do we put AI in here? How does it help? Let's start from the beginning, but we're on the clock. Our competitors are gonna get the pet food photo thing out faster than we are.
And that would be bad because we really want to delight our customers for it.
Okay.
So, first thing we can think about is in our business understanding how we become experts in new categories and new functions very, very quickly. And for this, we may want to use something like Notebook LM
Okay.
to essentially build up our understanding of that functional area very, very quickly. So, hey, what are the things in image classification that we need to consider? What's the financials around order management that we may need to use for these purposes? And doing this, even though you may have a background in data science, makes me also an expert in different functions very, very quickly and help me find things that maybe I might have missed in terms of my process for approaching the problem.
And I suppose we can also use LLMs here to summarize and understand the data we already have so that we can figure out how it will be useful to building this model. We may use conversational analytics or even just basic LLM analysis of different data samples. We always want to verify the results, but this can help us scale much faster.
Exactly. Now, let's talk about the fun part, right, which is actually creating the model. And here, using an LLM, we are going to actually probably use it like software engineers where we're using LLMs to write code.
Okay.
Shocker, right?
Yeah.
Here, we'll use that LLM to help us make sure that we have the right code for maybe doing preparation, for building out our specific model that we have, and even for running different evals, whether that's a generative AI type eval or maybe even simpler eval methods that we have. And the coolest thing in this that I think about a lot of the time is how can we create synthetic data? And if you think about this use case, we could use an image recognition model with an image generation generative AI model to create many different versions of pet food or toys that we want to train our models on. So that way we can have something that if you scan a photo, we can give you the product for it.
So things like the given toy in different orientations or on different backgrounds, we could use an image generation model to make training our model even better.
Exactly, because let's be honest, how many photos can you send us of that toy?
More than you'd like.
That toy maybe, but there's a number of other toys that you probably don't even know exist for these different things out there. And with all of this, we're just using an LLM for doing things like writing code and using the LLMs and all the cool things, and also helping us debug this process. Because is it a data problem why our model's not good? Is it the code that we wrote? It's very hard for us to do all this, and LLMs can help us do all of this much faster.
Okay, so we got this working, and we're happy with our model, but now we got to get it out to production so we can beat the competition to the image recognition feature in our application. Are we just going to vibe infrastructure this?
As much as I love a good vibe to production story, it's probably not necessarily what we want to do here. But what we can do is use an LLM to break apart different components of this.
Okay.
So maybe we have our data, and maybe we have our code, and maybe we have some sort of other artifacts that our model has created. We can use LLMs to quickly break these things apart and then get them into the right pipelines for our software engineers or our ML engineers to actually go build. And this makes it so we can deploy this faster than any of our competitors to get this thing to production so you can find that toy that you wanted.
Okay. This is really cool, and I'm guessing the people who are watching are going to want to check some things out here too. So we've included a few links in the description box below for you to get started with integrating AI with your data modeling process. We can't wait to hear in the comments about how generative AI is helping you build more ML and AI in your teams. And with that, this is Aja and Jason.
Happy prompting.